Hi everyone. My name's Jahanzeb. I just go by Jay. I came to CMU in 2003, and I came with a very specific goal in mind. So in my undergrad, I had studied computer science, but I'd also done a lot of like undergraduate work in international development, human rights, and psychology, anthropology, and I really wanted to apply technology to the problems of the developing world in particular, but I had no idea how to do that. So the best part about CMU in my early days was the immigration course, where there was no commitment of having to pick something beforehand. I could sample all the research that was happening and find see where I found home, and um, and that quickly to me became apparent to be in the speech research group, and specifically with Roni and Alex. When I saw them present the speech research group's work, I started thinking immediately about, well, people who have limited literacy skills in the developing world, what are the mechanisms that speech recognition and speech dialogue interfaces can impact those folks, where for them they don't have the option of typing on a computer or reading and writing. A voice is really the only mechanism that they have. So that was where I got my inspiration from, and I quickly kind of jumped straight in. Um, the first couple of years for me were pretty difficult though, because as much as my desire was to do this thing out there in the world, the funding was very specific from DARPA for stuff, like
Sorry about that.
oh, no,
Shut up. Apologies.
no worries at all. You invented the internet, so I think I think you're entitled to. Um,
That does not give me the privilege of interrupting your talk.
So anyway, I was here at CMU. I was working on I think it was Project Radar, and it was one of the most fun projects that I did at that time was we had access to a Microsoft a Windows phone. It was a PDA running some Windows mobile operating system, which I'd hacked to have a Dragon naturally speaking, which was running on my computer, have some sort of connection between the PDA and this device to do some seemingly on-device recognition, which was actually happening on a computer. But at some point, I was wondering, why am I here? Thousands of miles away from where I found home and where my friends and family were, and I was thinking that I wasn't doing too good of a job as a graduate student either. And then I was thinking of leaving the program because I wasn't sure if this is what I needed to be. And right then, everything changed. Microsoft came up with this digital inclusion grant, which was I think they eventually had 200 people apply, and 17 of us actually got the grant, and we were one of them. But that really changed everything for me, where I now had the funding to be able to do the exact research that I wanted. And so for the next 3 years, yeah, I think, for one of those years, I did a lot of trips back to Pakistan to try to figure out who I could work with, what domain. And I guess maybe this is a bit of the opposite of what Raj may have said, which is you have a solution looking for a problem to some extent. But the idea was, where can this technology be applied to help people who don't have literacy skills in a way that that hasn't been done before, that would still qualify for a PhD thesis, where it's still extending the human boundary of knowledge, but still also has some sort of real world impact in that geography. And so I ended up working with a research university in the health field, and then eventually a nonprofit that did health outreach. And the idea was to work with community health workers, which is female people from the community, women that are identified by a nonprofit, trained in basic health service provision, and then they help triage. Does this child have severe diarrhea or mild diarrhea? The difference between that triage might mean that you send one family off with one ambulance to go to the hospital to treat it, and if you misdiagnose them, then you might not have an ambulance for the next person who actually really needs it. And so, long story short, we basically ended up a lot of those 3 years. 2 of those years I spent in Pakistan doing remote work with Roni and on Skype as my one kind of link to Carnegie Mellon, which was a huge lifeline. And a lot of it was building a system, going to the field site, testing it, watching it crash and burn completely, being humbled by how badly I designed the system, but learning, and then going back and applying the learnings to the next version and so on. And eventually we had a system which did work. It's a still from the video that we still have up on YouTube. So you see the community health worker in the center is dialing up a phone number to speak with a system that's in my bedroom in the city. This is in the village, and it's actually running Microsoft Office communication server. So we're at the time building speech recognition capabilities in a different language cost $1 million, like on a commercial level. And I didn't have the time to kind of go around and collect a whole lot of data to do this either. So one of the contributions of this work was a very low-cost way to leverage existing, like an English speech recognition engine to recognize Sindhi in this case. And we even came up with a cute demo that we did at a conference, which was speech recognition in any language while you wait. So you would come out to our booth, you would say a word 3 times, and we had a cute little hackish algorithm that we would manually fix the consonants based on what we heard, and we would fit based on a vowel wildcards what the vowels were, and we got pretty good accuracy for a very limited data set in any language. Anyway, so that's what's powering this. We have speech recognition. We had text to speech, which was basically just a health expert reading out the information in a pamphlet, and we had a facilitator that would help train this person. Typically in user studies, you're able to just have people read and like train themselves. But in a non-literate context, we had to come up with a whole bunch of different ways of getting user studies to work. But by the end of it, we basically tested a fully conversational system with a touch tone interface. So press 1 for X and press 2 for Y. And it turned out that the voice interface significantly outperformed the touch tone interface. And for maybe semi-obvious reasons, it's this way more natural for someone who's never been to school to have somewhat of a conversational interface versus an interface with a menu with a list of options, where lists are not really a natural thing that exists outside a very literate context. So around this time, and this is the part I'll skim over, around this time, I wrote an iPhone app that ended up doing really well. And so I was juggling an iPhone app, and it was a one-man band. I was doing all this stuff on my own with this research. So I was doing tech support for my iPhone app while I was doing user studies with community health workers. So it's literally a time in my life where by day I was doing user studies with these folks, and by night I was doing email support for my iPhone app. So by day I'm working with low literate, low income brown women providing health services in their impoverished communities. And the app was a remote desktop app for your phone, so you could control your computer from your phone. So by night I'm doing tech support with highly literate, high income, because it's $25 for the app, high literate, high income, mostly white men who are wondering why the mouse isn't moving the few pixels or so for on this iPhone app. And so the difference in this world and that world that I was kind of straddling was kind of amazing. And then when I graduated, and Roni was actually convinced that I was going to leave because I'd seen real money by this point. But I really cared about the work and I wanted to see it through. So I did end up graduating. I did end up writing the thesis way faster than I ever expected. And I think maybe a bit of Roni's experience rubbed off on me there. But then the next many years, just to kind of briefly summarize, I know I'm out of time because I put a timer on just to help you avoid having to creep up on me. So the iPhone app ended up becoming this company called Screen Hero, which is about collaborative screen sharing between teams, which eventually got acquired by Slack. So I built out my team and I built out video conferencing at Slack. And I then left. Slack went public, so it's been a really great journey for me. But I'm now actually revisiting the question of literacy and text as a primary mode of communication that seems to kind of permeate all of office communication, and realizing that there's a lot that we can learn from the non-literate or oral cultures where it's all about emotional exchange of information, a lot about relationships, and a lot about connection in more kind of human ways. And so the new product that we're now working on, it's called pop.com. And this is just a teaser screenshot. But the idea is to get text out of the way. And it's mostly about walkie-talkies for quick, friction-free communication with your team. This is for remote workers. And then being able to jump into a video room instantly with full video, voice, screen sharing. And then when you get back, you're still connected. So just trying to get people to communicate, get out of the way, have technology and text get out of the way, and just let people kind of talk and connect as effectively as possible. Maybe that's